In part one of our discussion regarding market price determination, we considered consumer demand for goods and services in relation to market prices and other related goods. In this video, we consider the manufacturing side of the market equation, supply. In developing the market model, we will identify price as the independent variable and quantity, or the amount of the good or service that's being supplied to the market, as the dependent variable. We identified the market as the mechanism that facilitates both buyers and sellers of the products and resources in an equitable exchange. A market accommodates the voluntary exchange of goods and services where all parties to a transaction consider the value of the exchange and will only enter into the exchange if each party considers that they will be better off. From a manufacturing standpoint, the competitive market encourages each producer to consider the cost of the mix of various resources, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, in order to incur the least cost of production. When buyers and sellers act rationally and attempt to optimize their choices given their respective constraints, the interaction of all players will set the price we pay as consumers and prices producers will receive. You will remember in the first video we identified several factors that may cause a change in the market price of a certain good or service, including price, and non-price factors we identified as the determinants of demand: a change in income, a change in the price of related goods, a change in consumer expectations, a change in consumer taste, and a change in the number of buyers in the market. This table summarizes the 5 determinants of demand. As with demand, supply can be represented either as a schedule or table, or a curve on a graph showing the relationship between alternative prices and the quantity producers are willing and able to supply to the market in a specified period of time, ceteris paribus. At higher prices, a larger quantity will generally be supplied than at lower prices, ceteris paribus. At lower prices, a smaller quantity will generally be supplied than at higher prices. The supply schedule is a table that relates price to quantity supplied at alternative prices. The supply curve is a graphical representation of the supply schedule. The supply curve is a positively sloped line or curve showing the direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. In other words, when the independent variable goes up, so does the dependent variable. From a producer's view, when price, the independent variable, is changed, the dependent variable, the quantity supplied, also changes in the same direction. Changes in the amount a producer will supply to the market is only influenced by price when all other market influences are held constant. Graphically, this is shown as a movement along the curve from one combination point to another as alternative prices are considered. When factors other than price are not held constant in our analysis, these factors may influence the quantity that producers are willing and able to supply to the market, and they include resource prices, technology, taxes and subsidies, prices of other goods, producer expectations, and the number of sellers. In this table, examples of these non-price factors or determinants of supply are listed. An important concept with regard to the determinants of supply is distinguishing the cause of a change in supply because of changes in the price of a certain good or service, and a change in supply due to the influence of the determinants of supply. Whenever there is a change in a ceteris paribus condition, there will be a change in supply evidenced by a movement along an established curve. Whenever there is a change in the supply of goods and services, and the ceteris paribus condition is removed, there will be a change in supply evidenced by a shift in the entire supply curve to the right or to the left. Again, the only thing that can cause the entire curve to move is a change in the determinants of supply other than the goods' own price. Having now discussed the behavior of the 2 primary players in the market, the consumers who demand certain quantities of goods and services given the prices of those goods, and the producers who supply certain quantities of goods and services at alternative prices, we can now begin the analysis of how these parties interact in the market. When the choices of all the players are offered in the market, the supply and demand schedules can be analyzed together and presented graphically, revealing a market equilibrium price and quantity. Any amount supplied greater or less than the equilibrium quantity at the market clearing price creates a surplus or a shortage in the market. Price acts as the rationing function for the distribution of goods and services in the market. The equilibrium price and quantity is the point where everything offered or supplied is purchased. It is the price that clears the market of all product in a given time period. It is the price at which quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. It is the price where the demand curve intersects with the supply curve. There tends to be no movement away from this price and quantity unless some other factor or determinant of demand or determinant of supply changes. Equilibrium is a stable point. Any point that is not equilibrium is unstable and will not persist, ceteris paribus. When too much of the product is supplied, a surplus is created and the amount supplied above equilibrium will go unsold and eventually be discounted until the equilibrium price and quantity is reached. When too little is supplied, creating a shortage, prices will be bid up until the equilibrium price is reached. There have been times when government has concluded that the market pricing mechanism has failed to provide social justice or has harmed the economy or some group of constituents. At such times, government has intervened and has established artificial price levels. We define these artificial price levels as price floors and price ceilings. Price floors are artificial prices set by the government where it would be illegal for the price of certain goods to fall below the government set price. Price ceilings are the legal price above which it would be illegal to sell a product or service. An example of a price floor would be the minimum wage. An example of a price ceiling would be when the federal government limited the price of gasoline in the 1970s in an effort to curb inflation. The concept of supply and demand is often called the heart and soul of economics. It is the foundation for much of what is studied in the field, and understanding how supply and demand affects the economy can help us to recognize how economics impacts our daily lives.